Are you tired of spending too much of your hard-earned money at the supermarket? Are you dreaming of farm fresh eggs, homegrown veggies, and homemade everything? Well, welcome to Ditch the Store, where we break free from supermarket dependence and take back control of our food and household essentials. I'm CJ, and I'm here to show you that life is too short for store-bought eggs. So let's get started. G'day and welcome to another episode of Ditch the Store, episode 149, and we're taking a different tack today. I was going to talk last week, if you were listening last week, I said we were talking about tools this week. We're not actually talking about tools. We're talking about tools next week. And the reason was because I wanted to start incorporating some things regarding my background, which is a Celtic background, into what we do here on the farm. Because while I don't know a lot about it, I have started to include a lot of it in how I function on the farm. So today is episode 149 and it is Lammas, and I hope I'm pronouncing that correct, Lammas on the homestead. Sometimes that is referred to as Lughnasadh, which is a Celtic celebration around a particular date. And some people see it as pagan or Wiccan or things like that, but essentially it's an old Celtic religion that is an earth religion, and they do certain celebrations throughout the year. And I think there's 8 celebrations. I want to say 8 different. There's some minor, some major, so 4 major, 4 minor celebrations throughout the year. And Lammas is a celebration that falls usually around the first week of February, and that date depends. It depends on seasonal things. It depends on how many days are in the year, that kind of thing. So I wanted to talk about that. If you are not at all interested in this, these episodes will come 8 times a year and you can just skip over them and go back to the other homesteady stuff. But the reason I wanted to talk about it was I think it's really important for people who are homesteading and farming to recognise their connection with the land. Now, I tend to veer away from politically motivated things. So I know here in Australia there is a lot of people who say Indigenous people were the first on the land. They were the first on the land. I try not to get into a debate about it with people. What I try to do is say anybody that is on the land is a steward of the land, and they should be looking after the land that they have under their control. And that's how I feel about our 120 acres. I'm trying to make it a better block of land, and if the next door neighbour's block is not as good as mine, which side note, the next door neighbour's block is fantastic. He's a scientist and he's started using animal rotation to just build the best soil you've ever seen. I'm jealous of his soil, so I have something to aspire to next door. But I do believe that it's up to me to be the best steward of this land and make this land the best that I can make it. And I think to do that, you have to take a step back and actually be a bit more connected to what you're working with. I can't imagine, and it's the same in any career, I can't imagine doing something and not having a real love for it and not having a real desire to improve it. And so that's what led me down this track of looking at the Celtic festivals, the Celtic dates, to see why they celebrated what they celebrated and when they celebrated them. So Lammas is usually around 1st of February, very early February, in the Southern Hemisphere. If you're in the Northern Hemisphere, it is directly opposite on the calendar. And I might have to get a calendar up so that I can say which one is which. But for Southern Hemisphere people that are listening, it's around the first week of February. And the significance of this particular festival is that it marks the first harvest. So this would traditionally be the time where the crops have grown all summer long, and we're now getting to that tail pointy end of summer where we're starting to harvest what we have been growing. Now, you may have been harvesting things before now, but this was particularly in relation to things like grains. So wheat, barley, oats would traditionally be harvested after this date, or the beginning of, like this date would be the beginning of that harvest period. And so they see it as it's the beginning of the reaping of what you sow. So anything that you've put out there, you'll start getting the rewards back. And I think that's a really beautiful way to look at it. I mean, if you have a veggie garden, by February, if you haven't already harvested, you should have been harvesting some veggies by now and fruits. But certainly going into February, it becomes a really big harvest time. And this is certainly the time where your canning supplies, your dehydrator, your freezing, you're doing everything to kind of store up things for over winter, things that won't grow through that winter period. Now, the origins behind it actually come from, and I can never pronounce the name properly, but it's Lughnasadh. 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 Say it slowly. It's a Celtic festival named after the Irish god Lugh. And he was the god of skills, crafts, harvest, and light. And according to legend, he created the festival to honour his foster mother, who died after clearing land so that crops could be grown, which, sounds sad, but what a great way to celebrate it. So traditionally, those festivals would include feasting on the first grains and the first fruits that would be taken from the crops. Games and competitions. They used to have, like, the way that it reads, it's almost like a mini Olympic Games where they used to just go out and test strength against strength and speed against speed, that kind of thing. Community gatherings to trade. So it may be that you had grown certain things and your neighbour had grown something else, and you would trade parts of that so that you then all had the same abundance. And it also included offerings to the land to show gratitude and ensure future harvests, because in Celtic times, they really strongly believed that the gods of the land is what made their crops favourable. And if they didn't put back into the land, they wouldn't get a good crop. Now, we are probably a little bit more scientific now, and we know that giving an offering to the land is more about making sure that the soil's right, making sure that we've got our water content right, that kind of thing. But in a way, it is still giving back to the land to show gratitude. We're looking after our land in order to get that harvest at its peak amount. So many people today who have, different religions, earth-based religions, Celtic religions, observe it as a spiritual and turning point of the year, where it's the end of that summer harvest season, and now we're moving forward into our next kind of winter block. Now, some of the themes and symbolism that goes around it, and I really like this because at the moment I'm actually working on, I have here a gratitude journal, because I have been a little bit down about the fact that I have had my broken leg, and it's healing. My last x-rays were fantastic, and my bone is healing. My infection is not quite, we're not quite on top of that yet. I keep getting sick and kind of going down. So I've started writing in a gratitude journal to say what I'm happy for each day, because otherwise I just end up in an absolute mess by the end of the day, thinking, this isn't fair. How's this happened to me? I don't want this broken leg. I want to get better and I want to be fit and able again. And so writing it down has made me clarify the things that I really am happy about. And I do have a lot to be happy about. And I always say it, like when I've been in hospital, because I've been in hospital twice now over this leg, and the nurses say, you're doing okay? And I say, well, I've got so much to be grateful for. I have a house, a roof over my head. I have 2 healthy, happy children. I have I have stepchildren. So those that don't know, because I don't mention it very often, I have stepchildren. They're happy and healthy, and I even have a granddaughter, because the handy helper's eldest daughter had a lovely baby nearly 18 months ago. I've got the handy helper. I've got my animals that are all happy and healthy, and not always. Sometimes they get sick, but for the most part, they're happy and healthy. I have a job. There is so much that I have to be grateful for, but sometimes you can't see the forest for the trees. And so writing it down has forced me to take a step back and say, this is actually what I'm grateful for. And this particular festival is a lot to do with that gratitude, being grateful for what you've been able to grow out of the ground. And that doesn't just mean plants. We've got 6 baby goats up there at the moment. We had 8 this year, which was the most babies we'd had in one year, because we're only a small goat herd. We had 8 babies. 2 of them have gone to live at their forever home, and they are actually the animal companions to a boy who is on the spectrum with autism. And my understanding from the family is these 2 baby goats, Bruce and Dougie, have brought this young man out of his shell, and he is doing amazing things because he bonded with these animals. So it's not just about grain, it's not just about fruit and veg, it's also about the animals that you grow, and what you get out of your farm. Now, for me, I get peace and quiet. This is my sanctuary, and you can't replace that. That's really hard to kind of look at something and go, oh, well, I'm really grateful for the fact that I come out here every night and this is mine. This is my home. It's my domain. I'm not a religious person. I probably would say I'm spiritual, but I'm not religious. But we have a padre at work. It's a female padre, so not really a padre because padre means father. But we have a Anglican minister who, through my law enforcement job, who I have touched base with over the years, and I love her to death. She knows I'm not very religious, but she still always comes and she still always says, can I pray with you? And I always say yes, because I will take any blessing that anybody is willing to give me. And she says quite often that for some people, their home is their sanctuary. And if your home is your sanctuary, then you need to do everything you can to protect it, but also everything you can to realise it and be in it and enjoy it. And she's not wrong. So one of the other parts of the themes or symbolism for it is the effort and reward. So you're getting back a reward for what the effort and work that you've put in, which I think with homesteading is really important, that you do actually get something back. I mean, we've all seen those memes, spent 3 months and $100 and I've got a kilo of tomatoes. That might be the first year, but the second year you'll have more, and the third year you'll have more again. So there is an effort and reward system, and it will improve over time. And you may be lucky and you may get 20 kilos of tomatoes the first year, in which case go have at it, like can them, barter them, trade them, do whatever you need to do. It's also a time for transition. And at the moment, I mean, I've really been struggling with the heat at the moment, but given that I haven't been well, it's 40 degrees outside here again today. Now, for the guys in the Northern Hemisphere, I know at the moment in New York and places like that, you are undergoing an absolute blizzard conditions. And so for you, the transition would be at the polar 6 months difference of the calendar. But it's still a transition, slowing down from that summer harvest into the winter period where the ground starts to get cold again, the trees lose their leaves, you have your late harvest things, but then things that are going to go dormant over winter start to die off and go dormant. Letting go. This is something I'm not very good at, so I'm learning. But the symbolism is cutting the wheat down, so cutting the plants and reducing the crop that you have. Now, it can also be seen as letting go, as in, okay, the summer months are done. My veggie garden's done. My fruit trees are done. My nut trees are done. The animals have stopped breeding. We're going into a period where the animals are either going to get pregnant again, or they're drying up their milk, or things like that. But it's going into that hiatus where they can kind of regenerate themselves. And certainly with my goats, I breed once a year. And over the winter months, that is the time for my girls to put their weight on and get fat again, and not be milked all the time, and really have that downtime to allow their bodies to regenerate for the preparation for making more babies. And abundance. And obviously, coming into the end of a harvest season, you should be noticing abundance. You should be having, I saw somebody post the other day and they said, oh my God, look at my raspberries. Our raspberries did nothing this year. I don't know what went on with the raspberries this year. Because I hadn't been up there with the leg and everything, but the raspberries did fucking nothing. And somebody else posted a picture and I was so pleased for them. Their raspberry bush was covered. Now, ours normally goes right before Christmas, so I don't know where they were, but they had so many raspberries. And I'm a little bit jealous, but at the same time, good on them. I'm happy for them. Now, with Celtic religions, they tend to have symbols that are things that, not objects as such, but items. So the symbols that go with this particular festival are grains, obviously, because it's the harvest season, corn, because corn would be at its peak now, sunflowers. Now, here where we are, I don't know, the sunflowers would probably all be dead with this heat at the moment, but sunflowers, blackberries, because berries do summer fruit, and bread. Now, the reason for bread is because it's a wheat festival. So because it's a wheat festival, the idea is you bring your wheat in and you make your wheat into bread. Now, I have seen just recently, I was watching a lady on, I think, TikTok, and she was making bread directly from the little wheat, she was calling them wheat jewels or something like that, and she grinds them only as much as what she needs to use. And she said she never grinds more than she needs in advance because flour ground up doesn't have a great shelf life. I did not know that, but evidently grinding them fresh from the nuts, from the berries, from the seeds, is the best way to do it to get really good quality, healthy bread. So there you go. The little grinder thing she had looked amazing. I would love to get one of those. So might have to be something down the track. Another symbol that they use are things like sickle or a scythe, so harvesting tools, because back, in Celtic festival times, we're talking, thousands of years ago, or at least 2,000 years ago, they used to hand harvest. So none of these big combine harvesters going out there and, ripping up 400 acres of wheat. They were all hand harvested back then. So those kind of tools are considered to be symbols of that. And the sun. Now, Lu was supposed to be a sun god. So the sun at its height, because this is the peak period of summer, so to speak, between January and February for us here in the Southern Hemisphere. And for you guys, so that it would be, I'm trying to work out, it would be June, July, I want to say, around June, July, that you would have that peak summer festival kind of thing. Might be July, August, because August would be, it'd be July, August for you guys. For the Northern Hemisphere people. So, a modern homesteader's take on Lammas. Even if you're not somebody who's interested in pagan religion or Celtic religion or anything like that, I think it really is one of those festivals that you can still enjoy from the perspective of, this is our preserving period. This is our end of summer. This is we're going in to do stuff, and we're going to clean up and get things, squared away for winter. So I think it's a really good time to, like I said, get the journal out, do a gratitude journal, celebrate your small wins. If this is the first time you've grown tomatoes, basil, corn, if it's the first time you've had chickens in your backyard, homegrown herbs, that's the time to celebrate it and to sit down and go, this isn't so bad. We actually did okay this year out of what we put in the ground. We've reaped what we sow, so to speak. Another way that you could do it would be to cook or to bake something that you've harvested. So if you've got, I know around this time when we lived on the small farm at Gunning, this used to be my canning time for peaches. Apples would come in off the tree, pears would come in off the tree, and you would start just working out were you going to dry them, were you going to freeze them, were you going to can them, what are you going to do with them. And, sometimes you kind of get ahead of yourself and you have more fruit or more things than you can have cans for. And if that's the case, barter them with somebody else. Don't let them go to waste. Barter them with somebody else and, or maybe sell them and say, I'll use that money to buy more cans. So next year when I do my harvest, I'm going to have more cans to do my canning. That would be a great way of doing it. But baking breads and things like that with wheat, if you are able to get wheat in its raw form and grind it down, I could probably do it in the Thermomix. I'm thinking I could probably grind it down because I can grind coffee beans and things like that in there. So it might be worth me trying to get some, and I'll try and grind it down and see how I go, to make some bread, biscuits, bars for the kids, things like that. I love my bread, but I don't eat a lot of it anymore. But I certainly do make it for the kids. And journal what went well. People don't keep enough records when they're going through that homesteading phase. And I think I am a record keeper, and I will look back at things, and I've picked up just old notebooks and flicked through and seen measured out goat yards, measured out chicken yards, how I'm going to get Brahman chickens into one breeding herd and have them breeding and hatching out eggs, which has all come to fruition. But it's nice to kind of look back and go, oh, I planned that and it actually happened. Like I actually got there. There's other things that I've planned out that I look at and go, I'm not going to get there. And at the moment with a broken leg, I'm not going to get there anytime soon. But journal what went well. So if you had a cracker year with tomatoes this year, that's the time to write it down in a book and say, I reckon I probably brought in 20 kilos of tomatoes off the trees, off my plants. And I gave some away. That was over the course of, 3 months. I gave some away. I canned some. We ate a lot fresh, that kind of thing. You want to write that down so that when you look back later, you can look back and go, shit, I actually did okay. Those first couple of years, you might feel like you weren't doing anything and you actually were doing really well. It's also a good idea to write down what didn't work. We tried eggplants 2 years in a row. I don't know why, because we're not really big eggplant eaters, but I think the kids wanted them and it was a novelty thing. And we tried them and we tried capsicum. And the funny bit about that is both kids hate capsicum, but they wanted to grow them. And it was disastrous. We did a terrible job growing them. So now I just won't grow things that that are hard to grow. Carrots I find really hard to grow. You have to have the perfect loam soil. Otherwise, they just end up all those squiggly shapes and weird, stumpy carrots. Things that are hard to grow. If your family's not going to eat them, just scrap them. Don't grow them. Just grow the things that you know your family are going to eat. It's not worth the effort if you're only bartering them to try and get something else. It's better to just leave that garden bed blank and wait and put something else in it that you know you will eat and you will enjoy and you'll be grateful for. Now, you can also, and if this is for those that are a little bit more earth religion inclined, you can offer something back to the land. And the way that I do that is compost, water, turning it back over into the soil. That type of thing will make me feel like I have given something back to the garden beds that have given me food for the last couple of months. It seems little, but it's not, because the soil, without healthy soil, you're never going to grow anything. So giving back in that way, it's a really scientific way of making sure that your soil is going to give back to you in future years. And, if you need to compost, water, and cover it and not put anything in that garden bed over winter, do that. Do that and let the soil really, really soak it in. Soil loves warmth, moist, because I know somebody out there hates that word, moist. The soil loves it. So put that in and, and if you are so inclined, take a moment. I know a lot of religious people will take a moment to thank the earth for what they've done. And I don't think that that's a bad thing. You might feel a bit silly doing it the first time, but honestly, you really need to appreciate what you've got. Now, there is a little saying that goes with it. If you've made it through the heat, through the effort, stop, appreciate, and enjoy what you've created. I liked that. I thought that was good. So some simple ways to mark Lammas in practical and spiritual terms in your home. And we've already mentioned a few of those, but the first one would be bake bread. It's the wheat harvest. Go out, have a go at your sourdough. Go to www.mojohomestead.net and download the sourdough starter sheet and get your sourdough starter up and running. And in 2 weeks' time, you'll be making bread. Now, you don't have to celebrate everything on the exact date that these things happen. Around that time is fine too. So get your sourdough starter happening so that you can make some bread in a couple of weeks. Lighting candles. Anything to do with light, when it's referring to the sun, is considered to be quite symbolic. So light a candle. That being said, if you're in an absolute fire hazard like we are at the moment, make sure you light a candle somewhere very safely where it can't be caught onto anything and you're not going to burn your house down. But it symbolises the sun, it symbolises growth and gratitude. Sharing a meal. Lammas is a time where communities did used to come together and share meals from within their pantries, so things that they had grown themselves. So it might be something where you just invite some friends over who are like-minded as you and say, you bring entree, I'll make the mains, and another family come over and bring the dessert and have like a potluck kind of situation, and share that meal with them in respect to kind of sitting down and saying, we had a really good year and we just want to be grateful for that. Writing a reflection about how you've grown or what you're proud of this year, or things that you aren't so proud of this year that you're going to release and not worry about and move back to the things that you are proud of. And again, like I say, gratitude journal. I was never, I write a lot. I write a lot of things down as far as planning, but I've never really kept a gratitude journal. And I still see a psychologist because I am in remission from PTSD from my daytime job, and she encouraged me to do the journal because she was worried about me being too positive about my leg and not accepting that there were some negatives to it, but also actually putting pen to paper to say, yeah, I am grateful for these things. I'm grateful that I have medicine that can make the bacteria in my leg go. I am grateful that the hospital were able to put a rod into my leg to straighten the femur and try and get it healing again. Those types of things. But on a farm, write down, I'm really grateful that I was able to grow these plants. I'm really grateful that my kids were able to collect eggs for the first time from our chickens. I'm really grateful that my partner is interested in the same things that I'm interested in and is helping me with the farm. Those types of things are the kinds of things you want to write down. Offer something to the earth, like we said, compost. You can also plant things. There's certain things, depending on where you are, there's certain things that you can plant at this time of year. Certainly coming into our kind of March, April, I look at doing all my garlic and potatoes into the ground. So you can sit and kind of do that and get those planted into the grounds. And I've also got here celebrating with others. So, aside from sharing a meal with them, actually kind of get on board. Go to one of the Facebook pages and say, hey, this is how much I worked out. This is how much I harvested out of my veggie garden this year. Believe me, those people will be so happy for you. They'll cheer you on the whole way. And if you tag me in, I will absolutely cheer you on the whole way because I think that's amazing. Now, I've got a whole bunch of other stuff here. And I'm not going to go through all of it. This is going to be a shorter episode this week because I'm going over a few things that I have said. But one thing that I do want to say is one of the elements of this particular festival is fire, sun, and energy. And that is something that, a lot of people go, that's a bit too woo-woo for me. But it's not literal, it's symbolic. The sun is still really strong at this time of the year here in the Southern Hemisphere. And so the days are long and there's a lot of energy, and it's a good time to channel that energy into doing things. Like you've got your longer days, you get home from work, if you're like me and a working homesteader, you get home from work, it's a good time to go out and clean up all around, get things tidied up before winter. Because when winter comes, you don't necessarily want to be out there in the dark doing those things. So this is a really good opportunity while you have longer days to get in and get those things done. And it's also spiritually can be a time where you burn off things that you don't want. Now, that being said, like I said, we're in a fire hazard at the moment here in southern New South Wales, so we won't be burning anything, but it doesn't have to be a physical burn. It can be a mental burn. So putting things to the side, saying, I'm no longer going to let that impact me. It doesn't serve me. I'm not interested. If you are in a fire hazard zone like we are, writing it down on a bit of paper and then just burning it in a plate or in the sink is enough to really symbolize that I'm letting go of it. It's gone. What else have I got here? Just let me have a look. Now, the other thing I did want to discuss was living with the seasons, not just working through them. So what I'm going to do is throughout the year when these Celtic festivals would fall, I'm going to discuss them and we're going to talk about them. And the reason I'm going to do that is I want people to realise that homesteading isn't just about raising chickens, a veggie garden, growing something, butchering a cow, butchering chickens, raising some pigs and butchering them to put in the freezer. It's not just about that. There is a spiritual side to it. And, well, like I say, I am not a religious person, as in I do not attend church on a regular basis. I would consider myself a spiritual person. I do believe that there is a greater entity out there that's looking after us. And for me, understanding that Mother Nature is there looking after my property and myself and what I'm doing here, that's probably the biggest thing for me. Now, if that doesn't appeal to you, that's fine. Just skip these episodes. I respect everybody's religion and their right to practice it in whatever way they want. But I also think that if you are connected to land in some way, that you probably need to accept the fact that there is a whole different ethos around just being on the land and respecting it and respecting the seasons, respecting Mother Nature, because she can be a real bitch sometimes. We've had floods, we've had fires, there's landslides in the country overseas at the moment, there's blizzards in New York at the moment. It's, life's tough and she doesn't muck around with you. But I think it's important to be able to value what the good is, not just what the bad is. So the weather can be horrendous at times, and then other times you can have a perfect day, a perfect growing season, just the right amount of rainfall to make everything green and grow again. And you can do that by helping it, by learning about the seasons, learning about what works and what doesn't work. Things like regenerative agriculture, which rely heavily on the seasons to do their own thing. If you haven't looked into regenerative agriculture, I would strongly encourage you. I'm trying to remember the name of the book, and it's behind me and I can't even see it, but I will try and put a link in the show notes. Regenerative agriculture is the way to go. It's the way that we're going to heal the earth and heal the soil and make the soil do the right thing by us. And I think it's really important that we do that. We do the right thing by the soil does the right thing by us. And once we get to that point, it's going to be happy days. You know, at the end of the day, that's exactly what we're wanting to get to. So I hope that gave you a little bit of insight into what Celtic festivals they have around the year. I probably should have done one that was all the Celtic festivals to start with and then go from there. But I thought, no, it's coming up. It's on my calendar because I've started thinking more about these things and wanted to give a little bit back to the earth that I've taken from. So I thought I would run through that one. Anyway, it is a short episode this week, and that is it. And I'm done. Bye for now. Well, that's it for today's episode of Ditch the Store. If you're loving the journey to self-sufficiency, be sure to subscribe. You can also leave a review for us or share this episode with a friend who's ready to break up with their supermarket. If you've got questions or success stories, we'd love to hear about them on the socials. You can also find me at www.mojohomestead.net. Until next time, keep raising, growing and making. And remember, life's too short for store-bought eggs.